public sur le projet de loi numéro 14, qui est la loi modifiant la Charte de la langue française, la Charte des droits et libertés de la personne, également d'autres dispositions législatives. On a le plaisir cet après-midi de recevoir l'Office québécois de la langue anglaise. Alors, vous êtes notre dernier groupe aujourd'hui et vous savez un peu comment ça procède tout ça. Je reconnais un intervenant qui est déjà passé ici devant nous auparavant. Alors, oui, c'est ça. Alors, bienvenue à vous, Monsieur Shebbeare.
Oui, c'est ça. Merci beaucoup.
C'est vous. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
D'abord, nous présenter les personnes qui sont avec vous et par la suite, vous aurez 10 minutes, bien entendu, pour nous présenter en substance et en synthèse les grandes lignes de votre mémoire, après quoi s'en suivront des échanges entre vous et les parlementaires du côté ministériel et de l'opposition officielle. Alors, M. Shebbeare, d'abord nous présenter les gens qui vous accompagnent.
Oui, Anya Kwiatkowski, Unity Group, elle est activiste, chef de groupe Unité canadienne. Antoinette Mercurio, porte-parole, Unity Group spokesperson. Colin Standish, Université de Laval, conseiller juridique. And Madame Francine Weston. She's with the OQLA and Unity Group. Many of us are. I'm also on several groups as an executive member of the Unity Group.
Monsieur.
Merci, Madame. Madame la Ministre, honorable members of the committee, thank you for having us. I just wanted to say that it would be nice if this was also in Montreal. I have some of the hearings in Montreal since 80% of the English-speaking community in Quebec is based around Montreal. I'm a volunteer spokesperson for the non-profit organization, the Quebec Office of the English Language, Office québécois de la langue anglaise, oqla.org. Nous avons autour de 6,000 membres. It is time for our organizations, several organizations and sister groups like Critique, Canadian Rights in Quebec, Unity Group here with me right now, putbacktheflag.com, thankfully it's still there, and M&As, thanks to Liberals here, thank you for Liberals for saying no to Bill 14 already, begin to voice their support for the other official language in Quebec, which is English. Why? Since majority of Quebecers want to move on from the separatist agenda and reinforce their ties with the rest of Canada. A good start would be embracing the English language. Firstly and most importantly, we believe that English should be returned to a fully official language status in Quebec and to respect the Constitution and our shared history. We strongly believe that the trend as set out in the proposed Bill 14 needs reversal in order to give the 80-plus English-speaking communities across Quebec respite from the constant and methodological reduction of services. It takes an ignorant person to refer to English as a foreign language in Quebec. Furthermore, refusing institutionalized bilingualism is the same as prevention of advancement of our community, and is a key factor of the tyrannical linguicism in Quebec. Je parle de quelqu'un qui est bilingue de Vancouver et je suis outré de ce qui se passe au Québec. Bill 14 wishes to legislate identity, yet another unwanted clause that would hang over our community, and further reason to legitimize discrimination based on language. Predominance we had before. Bill 101 said that we're not official speakers in our own province. Now you want to legitimize identity. Hitherto, additional reasoning to make non-francophones feel that they're second class in their home and native province. Furthermore, playing identity politics is irresponsible, and I don't believe you are sincerely responsible, Madame la Ministre. But it is par for the course with ethno-nationalists here in Quebec who think they have replaced the First Nations, who primarily use English, Mohawks, Crees, Hurons, who speak amongst each other, who live double discrimination. Why are Aboriginals, this is why we have Aboriginals, who have been very offended with this linguistic segregation proposed by this PQ bill. these policies and this rhetoric. This has been going on since last summer. Legislating Quebec identity as French only, overriding the true history of Quebec and Canada, would be a violation of the Human Rights Charter in itself. Section 10, because language as a prohibited grounds of discrimination, which leads me to my next point. It would seem there is little respect for the universality of human rights in this province, since again, Bill 14 wishes to amend the Quebec Human Rights Charter. Simply do away with ethnic communities, c'est pas simplement une question de sémantique, and turn them into indefensible, e.g. from the standpoint of the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in The Hague. Cultural, changing them to cultural communities would have this effect, sans que les conséquences que ce qui se passe dans cette loi sont pas reconnues. Several barristers, including Colin Standish here from the University of Laval, have come forward to contribute, as well as Brent Tyler, who was here before, have come forward to contribute to the Montreal Gazette, denouncing this attempt, yet another, to legislate away the rights of minorities. If anything should be done regarding related legislation, 101, 22, 178, whatever the list goes on, it is time to consider these four simple concessions to the non-Francophone community and your fellow Canadians that make up around 20% of the population and pay approximately 40% of the taxes, believe it or not. It was René Lévesque who said to us, he's standing out there, his statue, and he said to us that if you pay taxes, you're a Quebecer. Well, we certainly do not feel that way. And Bill 14 will continue to make us feel as foreigners in our own province, since it is against the other official language of our country, Canada. Quebec is not a country. Le but, il semble, est de se débarrasser des anglophones avec ce projet de loi et des droits de la majorité en même temps. Les droits de la majorité d'apprendre l'anglais comme il faut pour réussir en affaires, réussir avec le monde entier. This is great opportunity. There is a great opportunity to bring balance back and respect for the rule of law in Quebec. Now that the Charbonneau Commission has made a clean sweep of corruption, we need a similar commission to examine existing discriminatory legislation. As such, a stronger Bill 101 is completely and totally inappropriate. As a Suburban's editor, Bill Barrow Wiseman has stated, Bill 14, don't even think about it. Instead, Bill 101 should be replaced with Bill 199, as submitted by Neil Cameron in the early 90s. If Britain and France had an entente cordiale, il y a un siècle, 100 years ago, England and France had an entente cordiale. Why not here in Quebec? We're all neighbors. We live next to each other. Un ami Bertrand en face de moi, puis mes autres amis francophones. We don't need a logistic division anymore. This legal divide keeps being placed between us by opportunistic politicians, inebriated nationalists, and separatist militants who think that we're foreigners here, les caribous et al. We don't need that anymore. Secondly, we need increased access to our bilingual English public schools, starting with the English Montreal School Board, Lester B. Pearson School Board, immediately. Remember, there was 250,000 before, now we're 100,000 people in our school system. And who's crying that something is dying and is lost? It's our community that keeps taking the shots. We've had enough. We need oxygen. Some 10,000 non-eligible children per year should be allowed into our system. Immigrants, especially those from English-speaking jurisdictions across the Commonwealth, should have the full freedom of choice in public schools to respect the UN conventions that existing provincial legislation currently flouts, and would only worsen with Bill 14 regarding CEGEP access and this openly disrespect for military families in Valcartier who have a great school system. Ce qu'on fait, on détruit ces écoles-là. Pour quelle raison? Pour satisfaire des extrémistes? It's ridiculous. Tell you. We would accept as a proper management decision made by the Quebec government that its entire population's interests be considered, and an absolute minimum that a proportional percentage of immigrants, approximately 20%, be allowed into our school system. A system, I might add, which produces a qualified majority of bilingual Quebecers, as Angela Mancini has made clear, thus indirectly contributing to the francophone linguistic majority, proving that we are not a threat, but we're treated as a threat. Legislation, bill after bill after bill. The third community need, I'm moving on, is to have guaranteed bilingual medical services. Considering the federal government provides the Quebec provincial treasury with special allocations for our community, why is this currently an issue? Given the systemic corruption identified by the Charbonneau Commission et le nivellement vers le bas, one can only speculate why we think that our health services are not negotiable.
Monsieur Shebbeare, ce sera votre mot de la fin pour votre présentation. Vous m'envoyez bien désolé, mais c'est le temps qui vous était maintenant
Est-ce que je peux avoir
donné.
du temps de quelques...
Madame la ministre accepte donc que vous poursuiviez.
Merci beaucoup.
Pour terminer la présentation de votre mémoire. Ce sera pris sur le temps du côté ministériel. Je vous en prie, monsieur, poursuivez.
D'accord. Nobody should have to pass a language test to qualify for medical services. And Marcus Bergeron's incident, he would have been here, he's the new leader of the Equality Party 2.0, he had to deal with almost his daughter dying in convulsions while somebody passed him through a language test. C'est dégueulasse, ça. On le sait, il faut l'avouer. Our fourth demand and last request is to dismiss any threshold to have bilingual municipalities revoked. Leave it entirely in the hands of localized democracy and the legislative and the community itself. This would stop this PQ-imposed threshold that is unrealistic for the survival of our communities. Despite peaceful and English and French-speaking neighborhoods thriving as part of an interwoven and multicultural, not unicultural, not unilingual fabric over hundreds of years that we've built up together living as neighbors. Even after two conquests, whether it be Kirk or Wolfe, and two lost referendums, and the Orange Crush. There are countless examples of streets renamed without any public involvement. Il faut faire la préservation de la richesse de notre province, quoi que ce soit, aux côtés de le niveau linguistique de l'histoire. Au Québec, ça ne se passe pas seulement et uniquement en français. I'm sorry, Danielle, but that's not true. Furthermore, an expectation of good faith has involved changes to Bill 101 as opposed to Bill 14, although we suggest the former be replaced, as I mentioned before, Bill 189, the Charter of English and French languages. It would resolve much of the linguistic tension by declaring both languages equal, since French in our province is not threatened. With well past 7 million people speaking it, over 90% people speaking it, c'est quoi la menace? Furthermore, il y a 400 ans que ça se parle au Québec. Voyons. Furthermore, this would respect the constitution of our great country by promoting the use of English, also to save Quebec from this poor, bankrupt, isolated province we have become over the past generation. We have to reverse this and remedy the colossal negative interdependence with the rest of Canada. We are very happy that the Liberals in CAQ have already come forward to say that Bill 14 is not appropriate and it has to be amended or thrown out completely so that our minority communities are reassured publicly that the interests be recognized in eventual legislative change. Only this way can we profit, and the economy profit, altogether from being open to the lingua franca of the business world. Merci beaucoup, veuillez accepter mes meilleurs sentiments distingués. Je suis un champion pour le Canada, and Quebec is included in my country.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Shebbeare, pour cette présentation qui a débordé pour à peu près 2-3 minutes supplémentaires. Alors, tout de suite, entamons un échange entre Madame la ministre et vous-même et votre groupe pour une période d'échange de à peu près 21 minutes.
Alors, merci d'abord aux citoyens et citoyennes qui vous accompagnent, qui sont dans la salle et qui ont posé un geste citoyen important, c'est-à-dire de venir à l'Assemblée nationale donner un point de vue. Et comme nous sommes dans un Québec pour qui la liberté d'expression est très importante, nous entendons tous les points de vue, la formation que je représente et le ministère que je représente, mes collègues aussi. Nous avons donc entendu et écouté avec attention. Je vous remercie donc d'avoir participé à cette commission. Par ailleurs, nous ne pouvons que constater que nos positions sont profondément éloignées. Et je mettrai sur le compte de votre inquiétude, de vos convictions, de votre sentiment, à mon avis non justifié, de vous sentir exclu. Je mettrai sur ce compte-là les propos ou la façon que vous avez de les exprimer, que je ne discute pas. Et je le mettrai sur le compte de cette question. Le format d'une commission parlementaire ne permet pas un échange qui nous permettrait de discuter sur le fond parce que c'est trop court, c'est malheureusement trop court. Par ailleurs, je vous invite à suivre nos travaux, je vous invite et je suivrai les vôtres. Je les ai suivis d'ailleurs sur les médias sociaux. Donc, je répète que la commission parlementaire ne nous permettra pas de combler l'écart sérieux que nous avons en termes de point de vue. Je voudrais conclure en vous disant que dans ma vie antérieure à la fonction que j'occupe, j'ai eu des collaborations extrêmement riches avec le milieu de l'éducation anglophone, avec de nombreux citoyens de la communauté anglophone, et que j'ai eu aussi le plaisir de pouvoir échanger sur des pratiques très intéressantes avec la communauté anglophone dans le milieu de l'éducation plus particulièrement. Quand j'ai déposé le projet de loi numéro 14, avec lequel on peut ne pas être d'accord, mais qui est un projet de loi réfléchi et qui correspond à la volonté gouvernementale, quand j'ai déposé ce projet de loi, j'ai mentionné à quel point, pour les raisons que je viens d'évoquer, mais pas seulement celle-là, à quel point il était important de protéger les institutions anglophones, puisque de mes conversations diverses et de mes consultations importantes que j'ai eues avec des membres de la communauté anglophone, plusieurs m'ont dit au Québec avoir beaucoup d'inquiétudes quant au maintien de leurs institutions, pas à la vitalité de la langue, mais au maintien de leurs institutions. Et j'ai bien entendu et répété lors du projet de loi, du dépôt de projet de loi, que les institutions et leur maintien me tenaient à cœur et tenaient à cœur à la formation que je représente. Et je l'ai répété à nouveau quand nous avons ouvert la commission parlementaire, vous vous en souviendrez tous et toutes. Alors, je tiens à vous le répéter à vous. Quoiqu'un de vos collègues est déjà venu présenter ici un mémoire, que j'ai d'ailleurs transmis au comité des législations tel qu'entendu. Alors, encore une fois, mes remerciements d'être venu exprimer votre point de vue et bon retour. Nous n'avons pas d'autres questions.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la ministre. Monsieur le député de Jacques-Cartier, pour la portion de l'opposition officielle, la parole est à vous, chers collègues.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. À mon tour, bienvenue. Welcome to this parliamentary committee on Bill 14. I listened to you. I read your brief. There are a lot of adjectives in it. There are a lot of angry words, and I understand that, and I understand it in ways that I think there's often a confusion in this debate between the presence of the English language, which is an international phenomenon that even if there were no Anglophones living in Quebec would still be part of our reality because there's Hollywood, because there are all sorts of factors. There's an internet. There are things that are international factors. And, you know, I think back to the exchange we had with the townshippers who came, and they are a historic presence in the Eastern Townships, built the Eastern Townships, and I think they came here and made a very, very eloquent testimony about their place in Quebec society, their role in our past, their role in our history, and so forth. So I understand a little bit, there's a frustration there that leads to, you know, this is an angry presentation you've made, an angry brief, and I just invite you a little bit to reflect a bit. I understand the frustrations and the concerns that you've raised, but if you look at the judgments of various courts, the Supreme Court, Quebec courts, language is always a question of balance. Language is always trying to find a way where we hit a balance between the concerns of different communities, and there are concerns. And it's fine for you to say that the French isn't threatened. I've been now a member of the Parliament here for 18 years, and many people have told me something quite different. So I'm not an expert, but I listen because part of my job as a parliamentarian is to listen. But I think we have to accept in a North America of 300 million people who are overwhelmingly English-speaking, in a world where Hollywood and now Bollywood are more and more taking up place, pop music. We had someone come and testify here for 45 minutes his concern about too much English being played in the Casino of Montreal. I'm not a gambler, so I have to take his word for it. I don't go to casinos, but so there are people with various concerns. So in your reflection, in your group, what is appropriate to promote the French fact in Quebec? Because I think there is an all-party agreement that the promotion of the French fact is something that needs to be done, because we do swim in this very English-speaking ocean, which, and I'll come back to it, Mr. Shebbeare, it's not to be confusing the presence of the English language and the existence of the English-speaking community. And I think there's a confusion there that's often made, and when it comes to respecting the English-speaking institutions, we'll come back to that. But in your eyes, what should the government do to make sure that this little corner of North America remains a place where the French language can exist, can thrive, can flourish, can continue to make a very important cultural contribution, not just here, but around the world? We can see, I guess it's a very cliched example of the Cirque du Soleil, but you can go on many continents, and a little bit of Montreal, a group of buskers that started in the Montreal Metro 25 or 30 years ago, or whatever it is, are now this big entertainment multinational with their blue and yellow tents all over the world. And I think we want that. I don't think we want this to be, in the same way you're very proud to be Canadians, and I think there's quite a strong message in Canada. We just don't want Canada to be United States light or United States with a different flag, that there is a current of opinion in Canada as well that it's worth doing something a little bit different north of the 49th parallel, and we don't want a society that's just Nebraska North or something like this, with all due respect to our American neighbors. So just coming back, and I understand the anger, and as someone who lives on the West Island, we all read about Mr. Bergeron's experience. It was a very unfortunate, mercifully an isolated, but a very unfortunate incident, that when your daughter is ill and the ambulance comes forward, it's not the time for a language test. I think Mr. Bouchard said that in his Centaur speech 15 years ago, and everyone agreed that you want service, you want help, your child's in difficulty, and the child is much more comfortable speaking English. I think everyone around the table agrees that that was a regrettable incident. It's something that shouldn't happen. But if I just come back to this notion of balance, this notion of what is appropriate to make sure that we can look forward to building a future together, because with all due respect, there's so much anger in your piece that I don't see in that a way forward that we can build a Montreal and a Quebec and Canadian society of tomorrow where people feel comfortable and where people feel they can work together.
Mr. Shebbeare.
Oui. Merci, Monsieur Kelly. Pour promouvoir la langue française, vous écrivez des livres, vous faites des films, vous faites tous pour attirer le monde vers le français. Vous ne faites pas embarquer dans une affaire petite compagnie et puis forcer tout le monde à parler en français. Vous n'allez pas à un menu dire « pasta, c'est pas acceptable ». Vous n'allez pas à un fish and chips and tell the guy he can't write fish and chips. Ça, c'est ridicule. Ça nous fait honte. Tous. Parce qu'on n'est pas assez grand pour laisser quelqu'un d'autre à s'exprimer dans sa langue. Est-ce qu'on est vraiment grand comme peuple au Québec, qu'on doit demander à notre voisin à baisser la taille de sa police comme tel? Est-ce que ça, c'est promouvoir? Non, ça, c'est pas promouvoir la langue française. Ça n'a rien à voir avec un renforcement du fait français au Québec. Ça, c'est pour attaquer les minorités. Ça, c'est pour baisser les voisins. Tâchez quand il a dit, you want anger? I'm just expressing myself. I don't care if it seems visibly frustrated or not. Mais l'affaire que Taché y avait écrit, c'est dire le lys élevé sur la rose, tout ça. Est-ce qu'on va terminer ces dires, ces phrases avec le lys? Il a arraché toutes les autres fleurs autour de lui parce qu'il a peur qu'eux, ils agrandissent, que nous sommes tous multiculturels et on fleurisse ensemble. I don't want to give away to hate, but I've had death threats. I've had the Caisse de dépôts audit failure on my back, pushed as if it was not something that happened. When we lost 26% of our retirement monies, l'investissement du Québec, c'est sous le contrôle de la Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec, mais c'est vraiment la Caisse de défaut. Parce que cette place-là, they break every law that they want. And you're saying it's isolated incidents. Madame the Ministre said it was, your predecessor at the OQLF said it was, Pastor, it was just one incident. No. I receive, comme porte-parole, the only visible guy who wants to stand up for the English language in our organization, it seems, because everybody else is complaining on a Facebook page. But I take all the complaints. I get them all the time. And you guys ignore them. When I went and I reported the death threats to the Procureur, Montréal, what do you think they did? The Milice Patriotique Québécoise. What is that organization? Why did it exist? Why is the criminal code thrown out the window here? The Procureur didn't want to do anything. So I had to collaborate with the police to get that guy and his militia shut down. It's disgusting. You never base an army on ethnicity. Remember what happened in partition in India? On a perdu 10 millions de personnes. Moi, je veux qu'on valorise le français, mais qu'on n'attaque pas aux autres qui parlent une autre langue, qui veulent s'exprimer. We don't have liberty of expression here. We cannot put our signs up in English. That's only if you're an international copyrighted trademark company can you. But even the OQLF was harassing trademarks. I get these people complaining all the time. Oh, you have a trademark? Oh, no, they're still harassing me. They want 5,000. Café and Gamba wants, it has to change this and that. The small business doesn't have this money. We don't create wealth by attacking. Vous voulez créer la richesse? Vous voulez promouvoir la langue française? Parlez-le fortement, fièrement, mais pas en attaquant aux autres. C'est ridicule, ça. C'est pour ça que les Français, en France, c'est ridicule. Ils rigolent parce que ce qu'on fait ici au Québec. They have English signs. Their language isn't threatened. 400 years here, French is not threatened. You have been manipulated. Vous avez pris un lavage de cerveau des nationalistes qui vous parlent, qui vendent le pain quotidien de mauvais perdants. You've been brainwashed. I'm sorry. Too bad for you. But that's the way it is. And if you think that it's just isolated cases, it's not the case. It's systematic, institutionalized discrimination. The Commission des droits de la personne, perhaps your friends there, I've seen you in photos with them, Madame la Ministre. These guys did nothing. They didn't even walk one block away to investigate the caisse. Because I had 2 senior vice presidents tell me, after throwing me out for failing their audits, tu vois, c'est facile à mettre dehors les Anglais. I'm sorry, mais les Anglais, ils habitent Angleterre. We're all Canadians here. Let's stop playing and kowtowing to nationalists who are trying to ruin the country with their failed laws and their failed referendums, and let's build the province together with equality and respect for liberty of expression, because it is not expressed here. It is not allowed here. And if you want me to be not angry, you want me to be relaxed, I'll do it really quietly and say it nicely. Mais rien se passera. The milice patriotique, if I didn't get angry, it would still exist. But now it's shut down. It's shut down thanks to the police. No thanks to this judicial system. The judicial system. When I wrote the document for the caisse, one page, the judge is telling me, oui, votre mandat, c'est écrire des documents, écrire des meilleures pratiques. Tournez quelques pages. Pourquoi vous avez créé ce document-là? Personne ne vous a demandé d'écrire ce document. My job as a database administrator is to improve the security and improve the administration of databases. And at the caisse, first of all, I wasn't even given access to production. Donc, prevention of advancement, comme je dis. Institutionalized bilingualism prevented, ça c'est du racisme dans une forme de contexte de linguicisme. Linguicisme, c'est la discrimination basée sur la langue. Et c'est ça qu'on vit. Toutes les minorités au Québec vivent ça. Look, where are we? Where is our political representation? We're disaffected, and we're not in Parliament. So if you try and pass this Bill 14, you're asking for war. I'm not trying to be, like, irrealistic here, but we've got all this neighboring provinces and states who are ready to shut us down, shut the access down, and prevent exchange because of this ridiculous idea that we can continue along this path. De mauvais perdants.
Bien, merci. Madame la députée de Montarville, la parole est à vous.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Mesdames, Monsieur, merci. Merci pour votre mémoire. And good afternoon to you all. J'ai bien compris, j'ai bien senti aussi ce que vous vivez, ce que vous percevez. On le sent, on le comprend aussi à la lecture. Et pas seulement de votre groupe, de certains autres groupes d'anglophones qui sont venus nous rencontrer également. On doit faire un exercice ici d'équilibre et de balance. On nous a soumis un projet de loi 14. Et pour nous, du deuxième groupe d'opposition, ce qui est terriblement important, c'est que oui, il faut défendre la langue française, mais il faut aussi protéger les droits de notre minorité anglophone. Et ça, pour nous, c'est important. Sachez-le. Il y a déjà des irritants dans la loi, nous en avons déjà parlé, pour lesquels nous voulons des amendements, nous demanderons des amendements. Il faut protéger vos droits. Le travail se poursuit, le travail continue. On a encore plusieurs semaines de mémoire de gens à entendre. Nous aurons aussi le bonheur d'entendre les gens du barreau du Québec en détail, de la Commission des droits de la personne. Je pense que ça va vraiment nous éclairer sur tous les tenants et les aboutissants de l'application du projet de loi 14. Parce que pour le moment, ce sont des groupes d'intérêt, mais j'ai hâte qu'on entre dans le fin fond de l'application de cette loi-là, dans la pratique, ce que cela va vraiment signifier pour les francophones et pour les anglophones du Québec. Alors pour le moment, moi, ce que je vous dis, je vous remercie pour votre travail. Je comprends très bien où vous en êtes. Et je vous dis que le travail reste à faire et qu'il y aura des amendements à apporter. Nous allons nous battre pour avoir des amendements, pour respecter vos droits, tout en protégeant aussi la langue française, puisqu'il y a deux réalités au Québec. Il y a les anglophones et il y a les francophones. Et pour nous, la langue anglaise n'est pas une langue étrangère, soyez-en assurés. C'est ce que je voulais vous dire. Je vous remercie beaucoup pour votre écoute.
À vous tous, merci de vous être présentés ici cet après-midi. Monsieur Shebbeare, merci de nous avoir présenté les grandes lignes de votre mémoire. Je vous souhaite un bon retour. Et en ce qui nous concerne, nous, donc, ça met fin à cette journée d'audience du projet de loi 14. Bonne soirée.